This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get it, get fly. I got 6 jobs, I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. Get it, get fly. I got 6 jobs, I don't get tired. Full-time artist, ex-guard, he said grind hard and learn from every time.
Welcome to the weekend, everybody. You've just downloaded the latest edition of Two Bad Hombres. I am the Doc, back from vacation. Looking forward to a conversation with my guy, Vito Churko. You can follow him on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Vito, welcome to the weekend, my friend.
What's up, John? How are you doing?
It's a good time, man. I'm enjoying coming back. Obviously, now everyone knows the news. The Detroit Sports Podcast Network and myself have partnered with Maven Sports and Sports Illustrated to provide content for the Detroit Lions, and it has been really, Vito, a wild ride. Really, I was on vacation. There were a little bit of rumblings that the person before me that was running the Lions site for Sports Illustrated really kind of fell off for whatever reason, just stopped posting, and somebody recommended me. And really, it's the highest honor when someone else says, hey, this guy built a following. I see what he's doing. He has what it probably would take to put out content on a regular basis in the realm of what's going on digitally in terms of podcast, content, stuff that people would enjoy. And so I started having conversations with the heads of Maven and Sports Illustrated and Vito. I was talking to him for a half hour, 45 minutes on vacation, and the talks were epic. They were nice. I got a chance to talk about the podcast, how I built it, what my thoughts were, and how they, run their business and how things are going to go. And it really fit perfectly for me. So that's how it went down. I was on vacation. I said, this is what it's going to take for me to do it. And obviously, when I looked at it, one thing would be control. I want to have the ability to post when I need to, really have the ability to control a lot of those things. And so at this time, I am the managing editor of a Detroit Lions site via Maven Sports, soon to be linked to Sports Illustrated, my friend. What'd you make of all that? Were you like, this guy's crazy, or did you not believe me? That whole thing that went down, man, it's just, right now, in the first week doing it, it's been surreal.
Well, you like being in control. I know that much. You like giving out orders. So you are the man to be in control. And you are the mastermind behind really the podcast platform for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, along with the help of Adam Strozinski, the co-founder, co-owner of the network. But you've done a lot of groundwork and just grinding to get the DSP network to the level that it has reached as the premium platform for podcasting in Metro Detroit, throughout the state of Michigan. So you deserve this honor. You're a football nut yourself. I know you watch every single Saturday college football, every single Sunday NFL action, including the Lions, despicably. And I know it's hard to watch them at times, but you do. Through thick and thin, you have watched the Lions, I think, from day one of your life, and you're like 50 or 60 years old now. So it's been a long time in your life when you've watched the Lions. You've been a hardcore supported fan, a guy that will criticize, though, the Lions when the time calls for it. So I think this honor, you are very deserving of it. And to run a website, that was a little bit surprising to me that you would oversee everything with the editorial content too, or editorial control. But I know you like being in control. Once again, you like calling the shots, and you are now for this Lions website through Maven, and you're calling the shots for me too, to help out with this site, to edit your articles, and to make them look crystal clear.
Yeah, Vito, it's a great honor, and really, to share with you and the audience, I was a little bit torn because the mantra was always going to be, I'm just going to do it through the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, but I shared with the audience the talks that I had with these leagues, and eventually speaking, you reach probably the end of the rope in terms of what you can do, and so I think, when I had the talks with the Lions, it just really hit home that I don't want to do that. I don't want to fight that much anymore in terms of saying, hey, I think everybody recognized, whoa, this podcaster went there and really did it all. And I think it really was an honor, too, for them to say, hey, you do it. You understand the platform. They said, we like what you've done. We see what you've done. We looked. They did research on me. So they knew I did podcasts. They knew my Twitter page. They knew what they were getting into. And I said, this is what I'm looking for. And it's an honor for me, really, to say that I'm going to be working with Maven Sports and Sports Illustrated, and I can definitely promote the podcast. And really, at the end of the day, they're partnering with me, and they're like, hey, do the job and do it well, and there'll be rewards at the end of the day. And that's all you can ask for. And really, at the end of the day, Vito, it's kind of funny, too, because in the second half of the podcast, we're going to talk about media access and stuff like that. The story with Anthony Fenech and Justin Verlander, I have a unique perspective on it because I had to fight tooth and nail to walk in the door. So my sympathy for Anthony is a little bit less. I definitely understand his position, but I definitely, in the second half of the podcast, will tease it because of the fact that, from what I understand in terms of journalism, you're not really supposed to make yourself the story. So I understand, too, that in terms of how this went down with the media and access, that potentially they were fighting a cause and they were advocating for all media, so maybe they took that step. And I'll get your entire reaction to it in the second half of the podcast. But for me, personally, I had to scratch and claw and email and just continue to email despite lack of response or despite people telling me 3 years ago to partner up. And I said, no, I took that as an offense. And I said, I'm not going to partner up. I'm going to make you accept me. I'm going to make you accept my staff. I'm going to have Vito in that Tigers clubhouse. And it was awesome when we started getting those emails. We were so excited. We barely read them. We were like, all right, we're going in. And then you get the access, and then you're treated still a little bit differently than everybody else, despite the fact that the work was done, despite the fact the resume was laid out. You didn't have to dig deep. You knew what we were about. And so all that fight that's taken place really at the end of the day kept us motivated, and it kept me hungry to do it. But now, when there's an opportunity that presents itself with the name and respect of Sports Illustrated, you got to take the meeting. And obviously, it's a partnership. And that's the way I look at it is we're working together. I'm allowed to provide content in my own way. I can do podcasts. I can put up content at any time I want, in any manner in which I want. And it really, at the end of the day, it's validation to the network that we created. And and look, you're part of it too. I would not have been here. I'll give you credit. Adam, Jason, Shay, every host that's been here is part of this because of the fact that they recognized, wow, these guys did it every day for several years. And we didn't do it nilly-dilly. We did it the right way. We worked hard. We worked hard to establish a brand and reputation where at least when you go out there, you're like, oh, that's the podcast guy, and some respect comes with it. So I'm really, really happy to do it. I'm happy to involve those that are close to me, and that's the goal, is to take that next step. And hey, that's what I can do at this time. Now we'll see how it goes, and I'm so excited, Vito. I know you can hear it in my voice. It's a thrill. And so you've seen a couple of the posts now. What do you think so far? I know you're not clicking all of them, but I know you're probably going, okay, let's see what he's putting out there. So far, so good, right? Dan Miller, Logan Lamorandier, people in the media giving some insights, some live videos. What do you think so far? I think I'm doing a decent job. I'm in the realm, and I'm going to do something unique and different. I'm not going to be breaking down, game film. Obviously, I don't have time for that, but I'm going to provide my insights, my knowledge, and I'm going to bring on awesome guests to talk Lions football. And so that's why I want Maven Sports, Sports Illustrated, to be a place that you stop every day in terms of getting your Lions coverage. That's the goal over the next, the course of the next year or two.
Guys like Dan and Logan easily lift up your profile and make you look reputable and the site look reputable. So I'm glad you've had them on as part of the podcast that you've done. You're doing a daily podcast for the Lions at the Maven site. So impressive stuff there, but everything else subpar. Good you, John Charles Macaroon.
Right.
I mean, outside of Dan and Logan and what they provide in terms of insight and content for the podcast that you're doing, subpar content overall wise. And probably because I'm not writing the post and you are, John. I mean, come on, what do you expect here? It can't be surprising to the masses. But you know what? Honestly, okay? All joking aside, you're not the best writer. But it's not expected of you to write these feature in-depth pieces on these
now,
players, and you're not breaking down film. Like, you're not going to be the guy breaking down film. That's not expected of you either.
But now, Vito, okay, here's the thing, okay, and I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you, okay? So I sent a link to my sister, and she said, wow. She said, you know what? I liked it. And what did she say? What was her consult to me? She said, John, you know what? It was short, sweet, to the point, in and out, great photos. And that's what it's about, Vito. Even I can't read at times. I can't read Pride of Detroit. I can't read Lions Wire. I can't read the news, Free Press, Athletic. I don't have that much time. And so that's why in this platform, I think I have an opportunity to do it a little differently in that there are those sites. If you're a fan of that site, great. They'll definitely be included in our content as well. But in this day and age, I understand. Look, my podcasts on the Maven site are not an hour long. They're 12 to 15 minutes. I just want a slice of your attention. And my sister said, great job, because short, sweet, to the point. That's what it's got to be. I'm not trying to, exactly, like you said, I'm not an eloquent writer, nor do I want to be. I don't think that's the realm I want to go in. The realm that I chose to go in, which got me this position, was to podcast, bring on people that are smarter than me, bring on people that will provide insight. I'll get them to discuss the information, and I'll put out content that will make you smarter as a Lions fan. And I think that's the goal. Look, at the end of the day, Vito, I don't want to disrespect journalists. I don't want to disrespect writers. But at the end of the day, you know, a lot of people aren't reading all those words that people are putting out. So I want to maximize the words that I use and definitely do it more in terms of video content and allow myself through the podcast platform and through digital content to get people's attention and to have that access. So I think that's where I'll differentiate myself. But hey, if you're a great writer, good for you. I just think there's more fans than there are writers.
Yeah, really, the article's just like you and I. Short, sweet, and to the point.
Short, sweet, to the point, baby. Get to it.
Short, sweet. Oh, we're not maybe to the point. You're not.
No.
I'm not. Come on. Neither of us are to the point with our talking. Okay, we make these, I think they're eloquent points, but we go on, and we don't maybe digress soon enough. But anyways, all joking aside with that, I think what you are doing is really good. And just because it's still somewhat attached to the podcast network. You're recording these podcasts in the studio in Sterling Heights. That's where our studios are located for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. So you're still giving us some shine and some love subsequently, John, which is great.
Exactly. And maybe, Vito, your face will show up on a Sports Illustrated site, Vito. I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but I can announce it because I've had talks. And it's so great, too, because the other aspect that makes it great for me is, obviously, I've been a boss for the last 7-8 years. And so to work with somebody else, he already told me, like, hey, change your header. I put my header when my initial post came out as JCM 31179. He goes, dude, that looks like a license plate. Just put your full name. And I said, okay, we shared.
As a writer, you're a writer now.
Yeah, we shared we shared a laugh over our quick meeting there, and it's nice to get some console. It's nice to hear, like, this is what's, you know, provided us monetary gain. This is what allowed us to be successful. This is where we see the field going. This is what we believe. And to have them ask me some questions as well, it's been awesome. It's refreshing. And so it can be, and of course there's, you know, a couple challenges here and there, but by and large, it's been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to be part of this situation. And I'm, like I said, I think you can hear it. Things are going very, very well. And pretty soon I can announce that, obviously right now, thank you everyone who has been clicking on mavensports.io, but Vito, pretty soon, I don't know when, could be a week, could be 2 weeks, because you know how these things go. Everyone has a plan, and then you got to filter it through. But I can say it because I think it's going to happen pretty soon. Those links, Vito, are going to be si.com/Lions. And my content.
Beautiful.
Yes, it'll say that. And then when you go to SI and you hit the Lions page, the page that I'm running will be there. So inherently, Vito, you're going to be part of Sports Illustrated. And I just, to say that, I'm almost going to start dancing right now. I'm almost shaking that, you know, the podcast network is going to be part and featured on the Sports Illustrated website. Holy crap, man.
Time out, John.
Yeah.
Time out really quick. Your ugly face will be seen on Sports Illustrated, and my beautiful face will be seen on there?
Yes. Will
that help me get a woman then? Can I get a woman finally? Having my face on Sports Illustrated site?
Maybe you have
Will it finally work out for me, John?
But we'll have to do it the right way. You'll have to send me an official video demo. I want to see if it'll look good on the site. You know, I put out a couple so far. I've had good response. So I think that you're going to have to at least show your mettle and that you're worthy of being plastered on Sports Illustrated alongside me.
My face is at least pretty enough. I'm a pretty boy. Has it led to me getting a woman, a girlfriend? No, not at this point. But hey, really quick, you brought up, no disrespect to journalists, but we're not aiming for that with this site, right? With what you produced so far, and even producing for content for this site moving forward. Well, you don't have to say no disrespect. I'm no longer a journalist officially.
Okay.
I'm no longer working for the Free Press.
Oh, it's official now?
You didn't know that, did you? It's
No.
breaking news. It's official. I moved on, so I'm no longer officially a journalist at this point.
Oh.
I'm going to be a PR guy, full-fledged, for an entity that you know about very soon here. starting in early September. So now we can disrespect journalists on the daily here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, John.
Did it end amicably? You just let them know that, hey, I'm not going to be doing these things for you anymore, and they said, okay, that's it?
Well, yeah, I wasn't making any money for them anyways, and that's just, totally criticize now and go on the, offensive regarding the free press. But you know what I was making. It wasn't a lot to get by for me to survive and for me to go live by myself one day. I'm still living in my parents' house right now, and I want to move on eventually from that. And what I was earning in terms of the income just wasn't sustainable enough. And I didn't get the opportunity. There was no upward trajectory. And I said to myself, I have to move on. And I had been looking to move on. And then this great full-time PR gig fell in my lap. And I'll continue doing other stuff, my other freelancing gigs. But this was the gig, the full-time gig with a salary that I was looking for.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen. It's going to start up in early September. So I can announce that to the masses here this week on Two Bad Hombres. And you can hear the inflection in my voice because that's what I'm excited about. Making a nice paycheck finally, consistently.
Wow, Vito, look at that. You and I both have, like we said, under this current president, we both have made more money. Look at that. What's going on here? You got a full-time job. I partnered with a major outlet. Look at what's going on. And the podcast is still making money too. So it's a good time, man. Maybe America is really great again. Right, Vito?
America was great.
Yes.
America was great. Let's not go down that route. This president gets away with a lot of stuff, too, where he thinks he's above the law. And there's a former Michigan State star basketball player that might have gotten away with something as well because of his name that thinks he's above the law. It's kind of funny you brought up President Trump because there's somebody else in the news, a topic that we have to talk about rather soon here on this week's episode of Two Bad Hombres. I think got away with something, and just like the president, because of his name and just because of his name and star status that he has had over the years.
No real good way to segue from our success to this, but everyone's talking about it because Mateen Cleaves earlier in the week on Friday was acquitted of the charges. He was obviously charged with rape and sexual assault, and the trial took place. Now, after the trial, this video footage was released in court but was not released publicly. We now got a chance to see it. And everyone that looks at it goes, this doesn't look like this clears him. This looks like a very highly suspect situation where there's a woman with, not many clothes on. He's only wearing socks. They're running out late in the evening, past midnight in this, place in Grand Blanc. And it doesn't look good for Mateen Cleaves. And so now, granted, I will say this. I have not followed the trial day in, day out to know what was presented by Mateen Cleaves' defense. But obviously, they made the case that the relationship was consensual. Okay, but the video, just without audio, kind of details something different. And so the thing that people are kind of clamoring to and wondering is, how did this jury, mostly made up and comprised of women, how did they only take 3 hours to decide and just come back with not guilty? Something was a little amiss there in that you don't think maybe you could have taken a whole day, look over everything. But, Steve Dace, a friend of the podcast, he noted, he said, wow, how could this have happened? What's going on here? But I looked at it and I responded and I said, look, this is what defense attorneys are paid to do. They're paid to put on a narrative, and you have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Remember, Vito, it's not a situation where we say, okay, maybe something happened, something didn't happen. It's the burden of proof is on the prosecution to prove that no matter what, beyond a reasonable doubt, that something happened. And if you don't do that, if the lawyer's good enough, all the lawyer does, listen, Vito, the lawyer, and I realize this because I've listened to a great lawyer, Mark Garagos. He does a weekly podcast with Adam Carolla. It's funny, but he breaks down the law and what the goal is. Listen, there are times where he'll openly say, I've defended people who I basically kind of know did it. But that's not the job. The job is to say, I got to find a narrative, a point of view that can open up the chance that a single jury, a jury member, one, you don't need all of them. You just need one person to kind of have some doubt, reasonable doubt to be instilled, and that's how you get someone off. Now, in this case, it was universal. So the lawyer must have did an amazing job. And so I can see the outrage, but at the same time, the answer is, Mateen Cleaves, yes, obviously someone with means, retained an attorney that put together a case, a defense that resonated with that jury. And it's fascinating. If you ever have free time, I know now that you're a full-time guy. If you ever have time, look at the legal system. Look at how lawyers and defense attorneys, the best ones, Vito, the best ones, they know how to probe and psychologically analyze these jurors. They know, because remember, these are jurors made up of our peers. And by and large, a lot of people, Vito, are not that bright. So you can entertain and throw out these unusual, sometimes theories that you and I go, what the hell are you talking about? But for the average person, they may go, oh, maybe it was consensual. Why was she there? They put on these narratives that potentially open the door for an acquittal. And so you got to give credit to Mateen Cleaves' defense attorney. But yeah, that video, when you see it, it does not look good for Mateen Cleaves. And by and large, he may be walking free, but I think you and I can agree his reputation probably has taken a hit.
Consensual my ass. Acquitted of 4 sexual assault charges by a jury. And they saw the surveillance video, supposedly. It was played in court, not allowed to be broadcast when the trial was ongoing. Released now to the public through a public records request that was submitted and then granted for Channel 7, and their reporter, Ross Jones, investigative reporter for Channel 7, all over this story and breaking the news regarding the release of this video, getting it out there to the masses. And, yeah, Mateen Cleaves, I think this video implicated him. And consensual, okay, I know that that's talking about the sex that happened right between the two, and I don't know if there was a prior relationship or meetup or two between Mateen Cleaves and this woman who goes nameless in this report from Channel 7 and from other outlets right now reporting this story regarding Mateen Cleaves. But it looked like, to me, that he got out of something that he should have been found guilty for. I think he escaped a guilty charge here, John. And for me, when you saw this video once again, him dragging a woman, and it makes him look bad, it makes him look guilty of something, and a normal man doing that to a woman, that just doesn't happen. You know, you don't do that, right, to a woman that you're with. When something is consensual, when you have a relationship, or even just a one-night stand, right, one-night meetup with the woman, and you're going to engage in sex, well, you complete that activity with the woman, but you don't end up dragging the woman back into your motel room, okay, between 1:30 and 2 a.m. It just doesn't happen. That doesn't happen for people typically. And when this does happen, when you see this happen too, you start thinking, well, this guy is committing a crime here, right?
Okay, but Vito,
don't do that to a woman. It makes them look guilty, John, to sum it all up to me.
Yeah, but Vito, could you entertain if someone said to you, look at this video with a different lens. Look at it like this woman was semi-intoxicated. She's not fully clothed. This is not what's going on in the bedroom. This is outside. Mateen Cleaves.
Outside, but why would you pull? It's already forced on a woman, right?
Okay, yeah, hear me out. Now, hear me out.
It should happen
but hear me
anyways,
out.
though.
Yeah,
is my point. That's bad, too.
Yeah, look at it through this lens. What if the attorney presents it as, and I think it was presented in this way, that no, he's not attacking her. He's not holding her against her will. He's trying to keep her from falling or going into the street and being hit by a car. That this is not, if you look at it aggressively, if you look at it from a protective standpoint, this is somebody who cares about this woman, and he's trying to keep her from falling and keeping her from really severely injuring herself, potentially getting harmed because of the fact that they both were under the influence of something. And what if you heard it from that perspective? You know, you could see it from that, but it doesn't look like it, you know, in terms of
no. You think he cares about this woman? He cared about bringing her back into the motel room for more sex, probably. That's how I look at it, okay? More sex while this woman is inebriated and can't say yes to him. Okay, that's what it looks like to me, and that's where Mateen Cleaves would be in the wrong and would be committing a crime. It would be sexual assault then. So he should have been found guilty of this. So to me, I know what the defense team for Mateen Cleaves was saying, what you just brought up, that he was trying to save this woman from walking away from the motel. She was partially nude, and maybe could have walked into the street and got hit by a car and injured herself or killed herself, worst case scenario. But to me, it looks like he dragged her back into his motel room to have more sex with her while she's inebriated and once again can't consent to having sex. Thus, it wouldn't have been consensual. Would not have been consensual sex. And thus, I'll let you say that word, but then it would have been where Mateen Cleaves would have been committing sexual assault of this woman, would have been committing a crime, and should have been found guilty. That's how I look at it, John. I take the opposite standpoint, which is more likely. Come on, man. The defense attorney and defense team is trying to dupe you. And obviously was successful in duping the jury that assembled to judge this case and define whether or not Mateen Cleaves was guilty of these 4 sexual assault charges.
Yeah.
But I always think of it that this guy, Mateen Cleaves, knew what he was doing, and it wasn't to help out this woman. And he didn't truly care about this woman. More than likely what he wanted was a little bit more fun in the sack in his motel room, while this woman, once again, was not able to consent to engaging in intercourse with Mateen Cleaves.
Very succinct, Vito. I agree with you. Really tough case all the way around, and we just hope that, in terms of everyone involved, that they get the help that they need so that this doesn't continue, that we continue the discussion of appropriate relationships, consent, and how to treat the opposite sex. That's the way it should be, and that's what we can control, is just be nice to the opposite sex, understand what consent is and what consent isn't, and definitely, if you're going to entertain intimacy, make sure it's of a consensual nature. All right, Vito, I want to show love to a great sponsor of this podcast. One of the reasons why we're able to broadcast each and every day, one of the reasons why we earned a partnership is because we got great support, especially from those at DC Sports at Lakeside Mall. Tell us all about them, Vito.
DC Sports is your source for authentic sports memorabilia throughout Metro Detroit and beyond. And they have terrific autograph signings every single weekend, and you can go and meet these athletes such as Matthew Stafford. There's a signing with him as well, being featured by DC Sports. So DC Sports, your source once again for all of the best sports memorabilia throughout Metro Detroit, throughout the state of Michigan, throughout the Midwest and beyond, as well as your go-to source and premier destination for terrific autograph signing sessions with premier athletes of Metro Detroit, Detroit's pro sports teams, and also former collegiate stars of our great college teams throughout the state of Michigan. And with that being said, follow DC Sports on Twitter at DC Sports Detroit, and make sure to check out DC Sports' terrific website at DetroitCitySports.com.
All right, Vito. Thanks again for everybody for downloading the latest edition of Two Bad Hombres. So some news was made in the media with the Houston Astros, and it kind of shed light on the relationship between Justin Verlander and Anthony Fenech of the Free Press. So for those that don't know, Anthony Fenech, in the game that Justin Verlander pitched, in which the Tigers won, one of the greatest betting upsets of all time. I mean, the Tigers were heavy betting underdogs, and they ended up winning. A couple home runs off of Justin Verlander. So there's a media scrum after the game, and Anthony Fenech was not allowed to be part of it. And the debate rages on between who initiated this, did it happen. Some people will say that the writers that were there, they should not have even entertained the notion of going in when one of their own baseball writers was banned. But Anthony came out and he reported it, and it got into the paper. Chris Thomas, somebody that you know personally, he said, look, this is completely unacceptable that Major League Baseball, there's a collective bargaining agreement. The Astros violated it. This is not at all proper protocol. And so it went back and forth a little bit. JV said that he believed Anthony was unethical in prior reporting. Anthony put out a statement himself, said, look, I've built a reputation that I'm proud of that allows me to go into these clubhouses. That's why I'm a member of these great baseball writing associations. And that he tried to say, look, that some of the stuff that has been reported is false. And so I'm curious because you have working knowledge a little bit deeper than I do in terms of working with Chris, Anthony, and things like that. How do you take what happened, and was JV in the wrong? Does it make you look at him a little bit differently going, man, if you just had a problem with a media member, I don't think it's really that hard to just not address questions. You just let him in. When that media member in particular asks a question, you just say, no comment, or you just give a quick, yeah, I could agree, or you just give a super short answer, because the idea is a question from the media is intended to generate a quote, and so most of the time they're not going to include a one-word answer in the paper to a question. So there's a way to skirt that from what I've seen and observed. But how do you think this shook out? What's been your reaction to all this?
Well, I don't get it because Anthony Fenech, I think, was there last summer when we were with Justin Verlander returned to Comerica Park. wasn't he? I mean, for that first game that Verlander came to Motown to play against the Tigers, and Fenech from the Free Press, I think, was there covering the Tigers in that game for the Detroit Free Press. So I don't know when this unethical nature of Fenech emerged, and Verlander started having a problem with Anthony Fenech, and maybe he dug up some old tweets. I know there was a tweet which emerged through a website of Fenech talking about Verlander's now wife and supermodel Kate Upton, but this was from like 2011, from nearly 10 years ago. So how relevant was that tweet now, and was it really over this supposed now, so-called dispute between Verlander and Anthony Fenech, and is that the real reason for why Verlander called Fenech unethical? Said he engaged in some unethical behavior and didn't want to deal with Fenech subsequently. But for me, from the outside, looking in as a guy that used to call himself a journalist, once again, like I said, I'm really not a journalist anymore. I'm not employed currently by the Detroit Free Press or any other outlet that employs journalists. But from what I know about being a journalist, John, and going into these clubhouses after games, it's that these teams are supposed to allow you. The player specifically cannot ban you from a clubhouse in the postgame. Because if you establish this precedent as something for these star athletes, then these star athletes from all, sports will start implementing rules where they're banning guys they don't want to deal with in the postgame. Guys that they just have a vendetta, I guess, for this reason or that reason, whether it be warranted or not. And a lot of times these guys who are grown men, supposedly, right, like Justin Verlander, who's in his mid-30s now, can't deal with a simple critique from a media member. Can't deal with a little bit of criticism from a guy such as Anthony Fenech. And subsequently, don't want to deal with these media members. Even though a guy like Fenech, trust me, has stroked the ego of Verlander over the years, and for many valid reasons, because of Verlander's success in an Old English D uniform. Verlander was on the top of his game, really at the top of his profession for a large portion of his career with the Tigers, from 06 and 05, he pitched a little bit too, but from 06 specifically until the time he was traded by the Tigers mid-season. And remember, it was, almost September 1, late August, when he was dealt to the Houston Astros in 2017. So really from 06 until then, John, he was looked at very highly, Justin Verlander, because he achieved a lot of success, and he did have, the surgery he had to recover from, and there was a time around the time of 2014 and 2015 where he wasn't at the top of his profession. But to sum it all up, he was a guy that was talked about very highly, was, trust me, written about in a very positive nature because of all of his success. So if there was anything that was negatively written by Fenech about Justin Verlander, and maybe it was during, once again, that brief period of time where Verlander was still recovering from his injury and the surgery and wasn't pitching at a highly effective level. But that was for a brief period of time. So if this dates back to that, that means that Verlander, to me, is just a crybaby. I mean, a guy that couldn't deal with a little bit of criticism. When people were writing some critical articles about Verlander, saying that maybe he wasn't going to resume his great ace-caliber career and would have to be relegated to back of the rotation kind of status. But besides that, I don't know where this controversy between Verlander and Fenech stems from, and why Verlander would call out Fenech for unethical behavior, when I know, once again, Fenech has dealt with Verlander for a long time now. Their relationship, whatever you want to call it, not a true relationship, right? But as a media member, you get to know the athletes that you cover. And you do at times, I don't get to know them on a personal level. So the reason for why Verlander called out Fenech for unethical behavior, when I know Fenech has written about him for a long, long time as the Tigers beat writer for the Detroit Free Press, I just try to understand what this stems from, when Verlander never called out Fenech for this prior to this. From my knowledge, this was never reported, was never an issue between Verlander and Fenech. Verlander had never said anything negatively about Fenech in the past. But now, all of a sudden you do, and you ban him from the clubhouse, and the Astros go along with it, and banned Fenech from the clubhouse and said, you can't come in here and talk to Justin Verlander after the game, when Verlander was the day starting pitcher for the opposition in the game the Tigers played in. And reporters have the right to be in there at the end of the game. So I don't know what this stems from. And to sum it all up, and I'm going to try to digress here now, John, is a bad look from the Houston Astros. And they're in trouble now. They're probably going to get fined because this was protested by Chris Thomas, the editor for the sports department at the Detroit Free Press. Protested by the Free Press as a whole, by the Baseball Writers Association of America, protesting this too, because they're looking out for the best interest of Anthony Fenech in the free for a journalist and a journalistically high-standing outlet that deserves to have been in there at the end of the game. This should not have happened. It was unethical on the part of the Astros, and writers aplenty now have come out and supported Anthony Fenech in the Free Press, and rightfully so, John.
Great take, Vito. That's why I got you on this podcast. You can follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Our time has now come to an end. Thank you so much for taking the time to record with me. And for those that have that question, heck no, we're not going anywhere. As long as I have this table in the Sterling Heights studio, I'm going to fire it up every single day as much as possible. I love doing this. It shows. And I love talking to Vito because, quite frankly, now that he's so busy, I probably won't get a chance to talk to him outside of podcasting. So congrats to you, Vito. Congrats to the network. Keep downloading the Detroit Sports Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Support those who support us. Support DC Sports over there at Lakeside Mall. We thank them so much for sponsoring this fine podcast. Talk soon, Vito.
John, you and I are Team DSP Network, and I think we're both proudly Team Fenech as well. This dispute between him and Justin Verlander. Adios, guys.
Adios. Talk soon.